Before the glow of cities lit the horizon, before electricity stitched continents together in a humming grid of power, before satellites blinked above like metal stars, mapping rivers and ruins with machine vision, there was a different Earth. 300,000 years ago, the planet pulsed with raw breath, untouched and unconcerned with names or nations. No steel, no asphalt, no borders. The wind roamed freely, brushing untouched mountaintops. Oceans rose and fell like ancient lungs. The sky was darker, but deeper. Nights were black as obsidian. Days were wild and wordless. And humans? We were barely more than whispers, fragile shadows beneath the trees, still learning how to hold fire without fear. We did not rule. We barely survived. The Earth belonged to no king, no empire, no machine. It belonged to giant screechers born not of myth, but of time itself. And in that silence before history, they walked freely while we watched from the shadows. Before maps gave the land edges, the Earth sprawled untamed, uninterrupted. Forests stretched across continents like oceans of green, their canopies so thick they swallowed the sun by midday. Roots dug deep into untouched soil. Trees older than anything we know whispered to one another through wind and time. There were no fences, no highways, no voices calling across valleys. Only the chorus of nature, the scream of cold wind through jagged mountain passes, the groaning of glaciers in the north, the low thunder of volcanoes exhaling in the distance. The air smelled of damp leaves, of wild rivers, of smoke drifting from lightning-struck trees. Herds moved not by trail, but by instinct. The world did not ask permission. It simply was. To the creatures who roamed it, it was home. To us, it was unknowable. The Earth had no names then, only presence. And presence was power. We were not the lords of this Earth, not yet. Back then, we were small, fragile things wrapped in furs and fear, clinging to the edges of survival. Our bodies were soft, our hands uncertain. We didn't run fastest, see furthest, or bite hardest. But in the long dark of the world, we carried something else. Fire. Crude, flickering, sacred. It was not yet a tool, it was a god we fed with dry grass and breath. It kept the beasts at bay and the night from swallowing us whole. Around its trembling light, we whispered stories, not knowing yet that they were our first weapons. The giants around us didn't notice at first. Why would they? We were nothing upright apes, scratching lines in dirt. But slowly, fire became courage. Courage became tools. And tools became fate. We stepped onto history's stage not with a roar, but with a spark. And sparks, when fed well, become wildfires. In the deep shadows of Southeast Asia's ancient rainforests, a giant walked unnoticed. Gigantopithecus, 3 meters tall, over 600 kilograms of silent strength. It did not roar, did not chase. It moved like the forest itself, patient, deliberate, enduring. Its jaw could crush bamboo with ease, but it chose peace over power. Where branches tangled like woven sky, it sat massive arms resting on folded knees, watching monsoon clouds roll in. It was a relic from an older Earth, one where might was not measured in blood, but in stillness. It had no predators until us. We didn't hunt it with claws or fangs. We brought fire. We brought axes. We brought noise. As the trees fell, so did the silence. The canopy thinned. The food vanished. And the gentle king slipped into legend. No bones were buried in temples. No graves were marked. The forest simply grew quiet one season and never spoke his name again. Far across the oceans, on the ancient island of Madagascar, thunder once walked on 2 legs. Vorombe Titan, the Titan bird. 3 meters tall, nearly a metric ton in weight. It did not fly, it never needed to. It ruled with presence alone. Its steps echoed across the plains like distant drums. No claws, no teeth, just bulk, confidence, and silence. Where it walked, grass bowed. Where it stood, the wind slowed. It feared nothing. Not the crocodiles in the rivers. Not the panthers in the hills. Not the sky. Not the storm. Not even time. Until, one day, new creatures arrived, small, clever, and desperate. They brought fire in their hands and hunger in their eyes. They set traps. They lit flames. They didn't challenge the Titan. They outweighted it. And when the nesting grounds smoldered, Vorombe didn't fight. It simply watched as its future turned to smoke. Not all extinctions come with screams. Some come with silence and ash. Before the lions of Africa roared, another king stalked the twilight of Ice Age Europe, Panthera leofossilis. He was massive, larger than any lion we know today. His muscles rippled beneath a coat, the color of dry earth, his eyes cold with calculation. But unlike his descendants, he didn't roar. He didn't need to. He moved like a shadow low, controlled, precise. A single strike, a single breath, and the hunt was done. His kingdom was not savanna, but forest, deep, dark, unknowable. The kind of woods where light hesitated, and bones outnumbered footprints. No fanfare, no spectacle, just the clean rhythm of survival. But as the trees thinned and the ground warmed, his prey changed, his cover disappeared, and in the shadows, something new watched, upright, clever, dangerous. One day, the king vanished. No throne lost, no battle fought. Just absence. We found his bones much later, buried beneath silt and silence. And like all quiet rulers, he left behind no roaringly a question. Long before cacti claimed the desert, and long before boots ever pressed its sand, a giant wandered the silence. Nothrotheriopsa ground, sloth the size of a bear, with limbs like fallen trees and movements measured in hours, not minutes. It lumbered through ancient canyons, dragging the weight of centuries in every step. Not hunted, not feared, just observed. Its fur was thick, its claws were slow but sure. It lived not for speed, but for patience. While other giants ruled with teeth and horns, Nothrotheriops ruled with endurance outlasting droughts, watching mountains erode, outliving storms that turned rivers to dust. Its story wasn't carved in legend or whispered in myth. We know it not from battle scars or heroic fossils, but from something stranger. In the dark caves of the Grand Canyon, researchers found its dung fossilized, still packed with desert plants, still telling the story of a creature too slow to fear, too strange to forget. Even extinction, it seems, moves faster than a sloth. In the frost-bitten stillness of the Ice Age, a presence moved between the snow-laced trees, not hunted, not hiding, but revered. Megaloceros giganteus, the great antlered deer. Its crown spanned over 3 meters wide antlers like gateways to another world, too large for the forest, too sacred for the spear. It walked like memory step, deliberate, echoing across frozen valleys. Its body was built for survival, but its form spoke of something more: beauty in burden, grace in enormity. A creature that seemed less like prey and more like myth. Ancient humans painted it not in fear but awe. Its image adorns cave walls like stained glass in stone cathedrals, not pierced by arrows, not dragged in blood, but glowing outlined in charcoal and ochre, standing tall amid firelight. Perhaps they didn't see an animal. Perhaps they saw a god that walked on 4 legs. And when the forests changed, when the cold gave way to green and the antlers could no longer pass through the trees, it didn't die screaming. It faded like ritual, like memory, like prayer. If evolution had a sense of humor, and we think it did, it played its greatest joke in South America. Macrauchenia, a creature so strange, it broke the rules of biology by simply existing. A camel's body, an elephant's nose, a giraffe's neck, hooves where they shouldn't be. a face no one could confidently identify. It wasn't beautiful, it wasn't terrifying, it was confusing. Even its predators paused to wonder, what am I looking at? Yet somehow, it thrived. It grazed the ancient plains of Patagonia with unbothered grace, blending into no environment, matching no ecosystem, and caring not at all. A living riddle undeciphered even by time. Scientists struggled to place it for centuries. Was it a horse? A llama? An evolutionary prank left behind after a long night of chaotic creation? Only in 2017 did DNA whisper the truth. It was closer to a horse than a camel. But by then, it had long vanished, not by predators or climate, but by us. We ended its line without even understanding what we were ending. In the howling winds of Ice Age Eurasia, where blizzards erased all paths and even mammoths bowed to cold, a beast moved slow, deliberate, and unstoppable. The Woolly Rhinoceros. 3 tons of horn, muscle, and shaggy armor, covered in dense fur, forged not by speed, but by endurance. It did not charge like a bull. It did not stampede like a herd. It moved like ice itself, ancient, heavy, and inevitable. Its horn wasn't for show. It plowed snow to reach the hidden grass beneath, carving survival into the frost. Its steps were slow, but each one carried the memory of glaciers. Where it walked, even the wind stepped aside. Few dared follow it. Fewer dared face it. Not because it was cruel, but because it was unstoppable. And when the ice retreated, the Woolly Titan did not rage. It didn't collapse in violence, it simply found nowhere left to go. We find its bones beneath tundra now preserved like forgotten prayers. Proof that sometimes the strongest fall not to battle, but to thaw. In the ancient forests of the Indian subcontinent, where the mist clung low and the volcanoes simmered like sleeping gods, walked a creature that defied definition. Homotherium. Not quite giraffe, not quite moose, not deer, not ox. It stood tall with 4 horns curved like crescent blades, 2 small like crowns. Its neck was thick, its gaze solemn, its posture divine. It didn't run from predators, it didn't conquer like lions. It simply existed like a statue walking beneath the trees. To early humans, it was more than an animal. It was an omen, a message, a god-given form. Some whispered it was a beast of Shiva, ancient, unyielding, beyond understanding. They painted its likeness on stone, not with blood, but with reverence, not for meat, but for meaning. But gods, too, fall silent. As the forests burned and the grasslands thinned, the 4-horned giant vanished not with a fight, but with a hush. No bones in shrines, no chants in caves, just an echo. And the wind whispering a name no longer spoken aloud. Not all predators hunted alone. Some moved like storm swift, coordinated, and merciless. Homotherium was such a predator. Unlike its cousin Smilodon, the lone assassin, Homotherium hunted in packs. It didn't wait. It planned. It encircled. It executed. Its fangs weren't as long, but they were faster, curved like scythes, perfect for slicing throats in a blur of motion. A single pack could take down mammoths, outflank rhinos, shred confusion into silence. But then, one night, it saw something new. Not tusks, not hooves, not teeth, but firelight. On the edge of the trees stood strange creatures, upright, thin, small. They did not growl. They whispered. They didn't run. They aimed. Homo erectus. For the first time, Homotherium didn't chase. It paused. It blinked. It watched as its world one, ruled by instinct and blood, met something colder, strategy. Some say they fought. Some say they avoided us. But the fossils stopped appearing soon after. Perhaps the fire was brighter than their eyes could bear. Perhaps the hunt was no longer theirs. Long before ships crossed the Pacific, before compasses pointed anywhere, there lived a creature on the islands that time forgot. Mealania. A turtle, Yes, but not the kind you know. It was built like a fortress. Its shell, domed and ridged like a cracked helmet. Its tail, long and armored, ending in a brutal club of bone. And behind its skull horns, 2 of them, curved backward like warnings. It wasn't fast. It didn't need to be. It was endurance made flesh. For millions of years, Meolania stood unbothered. It roamed the forest floors and sandy shores of ancient Oceania, untouched by predators, untouched by urgency. It lived like a monument immovable, unshaken, ancient beyond comprehension. Until, one day, footprints appeared. Human ones. Then came dogs, then spears, then fire. Meolania didn't understand. It didn't run. It didn't fight. It simply stopped. There were no mass graves, no screams, just shells, cracked and scattered, like broken shields left behind in a war it never knew it was part of. In the shadow of ancient African volcanoes where ash kissed the clouds and thunder rumbled like war, drums there stood a beast that turned blood cold. Pelorovis. It wasn't a buffalo. It wasn't a bull. It was something older, bigger, meaner, with horns that curved like the scythes of forgotten gods, so wide they could cleave through brush, bone, or both. Its shoulders rippled with brute force. Its breath steamed in the morning heat. It didn't charge often, but when it did, the earth remembered. Early humans didn't paint Pelorovis on cave walls to honor it. They painted it to warn, to plead, to beg for mercy. Its image appears alongside fleeing figures, broken spears, and eyes wide with terror. There are no triumphant hunts, no glorious kills, only trembling silhouettes and red streaks drawn with shaking hands. This wasn't a symbol of power, it was a prayer, a whispered hope that the horned god might pass them by. But we did not pass it by. One day the spears struck true, the horns fell, and silence followed. Even monsters are mortal. Even gods can bleed. Before the sound of axes, before the howl of wolves faded, before the forests of Europe were broken into kingdoms, a giant moved through the trees, not like a conqueror, but like a memory. Elephas Antiquus. The ancient elephant. Taller than any modern cousin, wiser perhaps. It didn't roam the plains like mammoths. It kept to groves, glades, and hidden woodland clearings. Moss clung to its legs. Leaves bowed in its passing. It moved not with thunder but with reverence. It didn't flee from humans. It watched us. And when early Homo sapiens came closum, painted it. Not in blood but in ochre. Not in screams but in silence. At several sites, its bones lie beside charred wood. Not scattered, but arranged. Some buried with care. Fire pits nearby. No cuts, no cracks. Only ritual. Perhaps we didn't see meat. Perhaps we saw a mirror. A soul too vast to kill. A god too quiet to fear. Not all giants were monsters. Some walked in peace and left as legends. In the tall grass of ancient Africa, where shadows flicker and predators stalk, something snarled that wasn't a lion. Metrodiocoerus. A name that sounds like a scientist's joke, but this was no farm animal. This was a pig from hell. Its tusks didn't just curve, they spiraled, wicked and elegant, like bone-forged scimitars. They jutted from its skull with murderous geometry, twisting out and upward like the horns of a demon disguised in hooves. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't quiet. It charged like rage given muscle. It ate what it could, and what it couldn't test it anyway. One twist of its head could gut a hunter. One surprise from the brush, and the prey became the lesson. It wasn't fast, but speed means nothing when death is a sudden curve of ivory. Few cave paintings depict it clearly. Perhaps they didn't have time. Perhaps those who saw it didn't live long enough to draw. Some monsters aren't born in nightmares. They grow in sunlight, grunt in fury, and bleed just like gods. For centuries, Macrauchenia was a riddle. Bones unearthed in Patagonia showed an animal that made no evolutionary sense. Camel-shaped, trunk-nosed, llama-legged, giraffe-necked, a chimera written in flesh. Paleontologists argued for decades. Was it related to elephants? To camels? To horses? Or was it something else entirely? Then, in 2017, a breakthrough. DNA from ancient bone fragments revealed a truth stranger than theory. Macrauchenia wasn't a camel. It wasn't a llama. It was closer to a horse, a bizarre, lost cousin galloping down a path no other species took. But by the time we understood, it was already gone. Hunted to extinction, displaced, forgotten. We erased a branch of the tree of life before we even knew what fruit it might bear. No stories, no myths, just silence. Its final truth came not from firelight legends, but from a lab. And even then, it whispered, "I was more than you imagined, and now I am nothing at all." Before the pastures, before the herds, before the sound of cowbells echoed across green hills, there was a beast etched in firelight. The aurochs. Towering, black, wild. It was not livestock, it was legend. Its horns were long and deadly. Its frame rippled with untamed strength. It did not graze, it claimed. Forest clearings parted for it. Wolves kept their distance. And early humans, they didn't tame it. They worshipped it. In the caves of Lascaux, its shape is everywhere drawn in ochre, charcoal, and reverence. You can almost see it stepping from the flames, hooves cracking stone, breath steaming like an altar's smoke. They painted it not to celebrate conquest, but to remember power. Not to farm it, but to fear it. Not as food, but as force. Some say the first fires were lit to keep aurochs away. Others say they were lit in its honor. The modern cow is its shadow. But the aurochs, that was the roar behind the myth. A cathedral on 4 legs, now silent save for the stories it left in stone. Every land had its titan. Every continent, a colossus carved by time. In Oceania, it was Meolaniatha turtle tank of the islands, armored against history, betrayed only by ships and fire. In Africa, Pelarovis rained horns like thunder, feared more than lions, painted in desperation rather than pride. In Asia, among dripping canopies, Gigantopithecus drifted like a spirit gentle, massive, unknowable, a monk among beasts. And in the deep forests of Europe, Elephas Antiquus stepped like a whisper through trees older than myth. No trumpets, just presence. They did not all fall the same way. Some were hunted, some were outpaced, some simply faded when the land no longer fit their shape. But what they shared was something deeper than biology. They were memory-made muscle, and they left behind silence shaped like bodies. Every continent had its king, but kings fall, thrones rot, and when they vanish, only the dirt remembers their names. But what about us? When we arrived, we weren't kings. We weren't hunters. We were praise-maul, soft and slow, clutching, burning sticks against a world built by giants. We crept through their forests. We drank from their rivers. We slept in the shadows of their bones. The earth did not know our name. The wind did not carry our scent with fear. The animals did not run when we passed. They watched, puzzled, as upright apes with trembling hands carved meaning from nothing. We didn't have claws. We didn't have speed. We had stories. We remembered. We told. We passed the memories like fire, from one trembling palm to the next, until the myth grew leg sand stood beside us in the dark. We weren't monsters, not yet. We were ghosts with sparks in our eyes. And though the world wasn't ours, we were learning to make it listen. The first humans didn't leave monuments. They left handprints, pressed onto cave walls in ochre and ash, not as signatures but as whispers, I was here. They left fire pits, charred and cold, surrounded by bones of beasts long gone. They left scratches on stone, meaningless to beasts, but sacred to memory. These were not monuments of power. They were not built to impress gods. They were built to defy forgetting. Because our ancestors knew something terrible, something all the giants didn't. Nothing lasts. Not horns, not tusks, not fur, not even strength. Only memory. So they burned it into walls, told it in stories, wrapped it in myth. They sat by the fire and spoke of Madagascar, of the silent king, of the birds that feared nothing, and in those stories, they made the giants eternal. They didn't try to conquer the world. They tried to remember it. Not all beasts stepped aside. Some turned toward the firelight and chose to fight. Homotherium did its fangs slicing through the dark in coordinated fury. It didn't stalk from instinct. It attacked with intent, as if it knew what we were and what we would become. Metridio, tusks twisting like blades, charged with blind rage. It didn't plan, it didn't fear, it just ran straight into spears, preferring death to displacement. Pelorovis faced us head-on. Its horns curved like war. Its body was battle itself. The images they left behind on cave walls and in broken bones were not portraits of victory. They were warnings, scars, signs that not every giant vanished in silence. Some roared until the end. Some made us bleed. Some nearly stopped us. But fire didn't flinch. And memory moved faster than muscle. In the end, courage wasn't enough. Because we didn't come to test strength. We came to replace it. Not every extinction ended in blood. Some ended in silence. Gigantopithecus didn't roar. It didn't lunge. It didn't defend the forest as the axes came. It simply vanished like mist swallowed by morning. Meolania, armored and ancient, didn't lift its spiked tail. It didn't charge the boats. It didn't fear the dogs. It stood its ground because it didn't know it was under attack. Vorombe, the Titan bird of Madagascar, did not flee. It watched as the fire circled its nest. Its towering head tilted not in fear, but in confusion. They didn't lose wars. They didn't even enter them. Because how do you fight what you cannot comprehend? How do you defend yourself against a story, a strategy, a hunger shaped like man? Their endings came without warning, without ceremony, without cruelty. But that doesn't make it less tragic. Some beasts died with a roar. These died with a blink. Not every giant fell to fire. Not every titan was hunted. Some we stepped back from. In certain caves across Europe, we find the bones of Elephas Antiquus not broken, not scattered, but arranged. Ashes lie beside them, fire pits nearby, but no signs of slaughter, no blade marks, no shattered skulls. The remains are quiet, intentional, as if someone lit a fire not to cook but to mourn. Did they bury the elephant? Did they burn herbs in its memory? Did they sit in a circle of silence and simply let it pass? There are no words carved in stone to explain it. But the arrangement speaks louder than language. Perhaps in its eyes we saw something more. Not meat, not fear, but stillness. A mirror too massive to ignore. Perhaps, just once, we looked into the face of a god and chose not to kill it. That choice, the not killing echoes louder than any conquest. And maybe in that moment, before the walls rose, before the fields burned, we were something more than dominant. We were human. The age of beasts did not end in battle cries. It ended in strategy. We had no claws, no fangs, no armor thick enough to stop a charging Pelorovis. But we had something deadlier, patience. We set traps while they charged. We lit fires while they slept. We drew maps in the dirt while they followed instinct alone. Our weapon was never muscle. It was memory. It was planning. It was the ability to imagine what comes next and act on it before the first shadow fell. We did not fight fair. We fought clever. We turned time into a tool. And with every snare set, every ember sparked, we reshaped the world into something only we could survive. No beast ever saw us coming because we weren't nature's warrior. We were its schemer. And in the end, that was enough. The teeth didn't matter. The size didn't matter, because the deadliest predator is the one who remembers. Not every extinction came by spear. Some came with sunlight. As the Ice Age melted, rivers changed course. Oceans crept inland. Grasslands turned to forests. What was once open became tangled. What was once vast became narrow. And the giants who had ruled a colder earth could no longer move freely. Megaloceros, with antlers wide as temple doors, could no longer walk the new woods. Its crown became a curse. It turned sideways. It stumbled. It vanished. Others followed. The woolly ones shed their coats too slowly. The tundra beasts found no snow. The steppe runners found no plains. They didn't die in battle. They faded like ice on stone. The earth wasn't cruel. It simply changed. And sometimes, survival isn't about fighting harder, but fitting better. And this time, the world no longer fit its giants. What made us different wasn't our tools. It wasn't our fire. It wasn't even our hunger. It was this. We couldn't let things go. We remembered. We buried our dead. We traced the stars. We told stories about the beasts we saw and the ones we feared we never would again. We didn't just kill giants. We gave them names. We drew their bones into the walls of time. We are the only creature that mourns with memory. The only one that paints with grief. The only one that keeps a ghost alive by whispering its shape. That is our truest weapon, and our oldest art. We didn't survive because we were the best. We survived because we couldn't forget. Even now, buried deep beneath code and cities and screens, we carry echoes of a time before us. A time ruled by monsters and gods and green firelight. And in that echo, we are still human. Today, we live among skyscrapers, satellites, algorithms. We ask questions into glowing screens. We chase meaning through wires and waves. But sometimes, just sometimes, when you walk alone through a forest, or stare into a campfire's slow breath, you feel it. The old heartbeat. Not yours, not the city's bros, the earth's. It hums in the rustle of leaves. It lingers in the howl of wind between mountains. It pulses in thunder, in silence, in dreams too old for language. That rhythm once guided mammoths through snow. It stirred Megaloceros in his misted glade. It cradled the slow breath of Gigantopithecus beneath the green. It is not gone. You hear it in your fear of the dark, in your awe at lightning, in the way you instinctively look over your shoulder when the forest suddenly goes quiet. Some call it instinct, but maybe it's memory. Not yours, ours. That ancient world, the one ruled by giants and silent seas, not gone. It lives in you. It sleeps inside your DNA, folded between the instructions for your skin and your soul. In every cell, echoes of those who ran from lions, stared down the horns of Pelorovis, whispered stories of fire to children wrapped in fur. Why do we fear the dark? Why does thunder still make our hearts race? Why does the crackle of fire calm us more than music? Because somewhere deep inside, your ancestors are still listening, still watching the tree line, still carrying spears not in hand, but in bone. You are not just a person. You are a story 300,000 years long, written in blood, carved in breath, told in silence. You are not above the beasts. You are made of them, and they of you. Their extinction wasn't the end. It was the beginning of memory, and memory never dies. It only sleeps waiting to be remembered. If these stories stirred something inside you, a flicker, a chill, a strange sadness for things you never saw but somehow miss, that's not nostalgia. That's memory. You were never meant to forget this world. The one with sky-sized antlers, with turtles armored like tanks, with birds that stood taller than lions. The world before walls, before kings, before names. You carry its echo in your blood, in your dreams, in the shiver you feel when you walk alone in deep woods and realize you are not the first thing to walk there. These beasts did not write books. They left no languages, only bones. And we are the last ones who can speak for them. So if this moved you, stay with us. Let us walk together into the forgotten shadows. Let us light fires for what came before. Let us remember what the earth was before we ruled it. Because if we don't tell these stories, no one will. Subscribe to Prehistoric Shadows, where we remember what the earth was before we ruled it. Because if we don't tell